You're listening to Culture 101 on RNZ National. Now to our reading. Amy McDaid's acclaimed debut novel, Fake Baby, tells the story of three Aucklanders whose lives have been overwhelmed by daily disappointments. It's a darkly funny book that won New Zealand's richest prize for a creative writing student when McDaid was completing a master's in creative writing. So here is part 7 of Fake Baby as told by Nigel Collins and Alicia Jacobs.
The energy drummed at Jaanvi's chest, in the bright, high-ceilinged space. She breathed it in, out. There were two other mothers like Jaanvi, with their babies in slings. Jaanvi wrapped her arms around James in the sling and pushed her way through to an empty table in the corner. The three women at the table beside Jaanvi pulled their chairs in to let her pass. Two cloth-covered infant capsules were at their feet. Jaanvi looked around the cafe. It was nice to be away from the city, away from the high-rises. And she'd enjoyed the walk up through the tree-lined streets, past the villas with their white standard roses and white standard fences. So neat, they looked like dolls' houses. Her neighbour's food arrived, and the women turned their plates from side to side and snapped photos. Jaanvi ordered a smoothie. One of the women stood up and made her way up to the counter and collected a knife and fork. On her way back, she stopped beside Jaanvi. So sweet, sleeping peacefully like that. How old is he? 9 days, said Jaanvi. You're doing well. Getting out? Sleeping all right, is he? Right through. You're kidding me. She nodded towards the infant capsule. 4 months old, and I was up 6 times last night. At least. Maybe more like 10. I don't count because half the time I'm still asleep when I climb out of bed. Jaanvi sucked up a mouthful of the thick green liquid the waitress had plonked in front of her. The woman didn't move. She stood so close, Jaanvi could hear her licking her lips. How nosy. All she wanted was to enjoy a lunch without interference. Her hemp smoothie was not having the desired effect. He's not moving much. No. Is he okay? Yes. The woman reached out, and before Jaanvi had a chance to pull back and object, she touched James on the top of his head. It's a doll, she shouted. It's a frickin' doll. Jaanvi became acutely aware of a hush in the air. No talking, just forks clinking against the sides of plates and the espresso machine whirring in the background. His name is James, she said. He's a reborn. He's made of silicone. Where did you get him from? Can I touch him? Jaanvi eyed up the woman's hands. Fake nails, long and pink to match her shoes. Claw-like. Everyone knew fake nails like that harbored germs. Haven't you already touched him? The woman smiled. I thought something wasn't right, she said. No wonder he's sleeping through the night. She laughed and turned to her friends. He's incredible, isn't he? Look at those eyebrows. Jaanvi stood up. All the blood in her body rushed to her face. The women looked down at their plates. Smirks tugged at their lips. You lot think you're so smart and better than everyone else. And look at yourselves, bitches, leaving your babies in their car seats all covered up under blankets. What are you talking about? Snapped the woman. You haven't even checked on them. The whole time I've been here, not once. They're sleeping, said Leah. They could be dead, suffocated, caused death. I'll call child services on you. You don't even care. Everyone in the cafe froze. Eyes on plates, eyes on cups, eyes on phones, ears flapping at the sides of their faces. The coffee machine ground to a halt. But do you have children? Asked one of the women. He's right here. You're not even a mother. Yes, I am, she snorted. You have no idea what it's like. You have no right to judge my friends here. I'm glad that's a doll strapped to your chest, because that's the closest you should ever come to a child. You should never have a child. No one should even let you near their child. Jaanvi placed a hand on top of James's head. I don't need to put up with this shit. Minding my own business, and you start abusing me. She pushed past them. If it hadn't been for James, she'd have punched their lights out.
Did you know the amount of medication people swallow these days is polluting the water system? Said Manu. Traces of prescription medicine are being found in our tap water. Lucas paused from counting 30 Ativan tablets. He'd heard such claims before, of course. Is that right? Imagine that. People piss them out and they make their way into the sewage system. They leak out of septic systems, they end up in groundwater. It's not an ideal situation, said Lucas. I'll admit that. We need a water filter system, IMO, said Ayla. I don't want to drink other people's pissed medications. That's what I reckon, said Manu. Stupidest thing I've ever heard, said Judith. A short, snappy conversation between Judith and Ayla about water filter systems floated over Lucas's head. People getting medicines they shouldn't. How many days since? Only 3. He could still call the association. He picked up the phone. His hand shook. But 3 days? How could he explain 3 days? Are you sure Edith's going to be all right? Whispered Manu, as if he guessed Lucas's next move. Lucas placed the phone back down on the receiver. She looked bright, sitting up, chatting. They'll probably discharge her later this week. Manu slowly exhaled. Remember, it's the monthly staff meeting this evening, everyone. On the agenda, the Privacy Act, tea break coordination, and how we can make customers feel welcome. Ayla frowned. Judith slammed the till shut and swore under her breath. Manu turned on the tap, filled the glass, sniffed the water, took a tentative sip, and then tipped it back down the sink. How about I get some pizza afterwards? Lucas suggested. How about you get some beers? Said Manu. I guess I could do that. Wine? Asked Ayla. Sure. Everyone seemed brighter after that. He hadn't told his staff about his Canada trip yet. When he did, surely they'd be excited for him. Manu would slap him on the back. Ayla would squeeze his arm. Judith would... Well, he couldn't be sure what Judith would do in her current frame of mind, but she'd be pleased for him, even if she didn't show it. Ayla and Judith sat on opposite ends of the couch. Ayla's face was flushed. She just asked Lucas to tell Judith her ass was taking up too much room on the couch and could she please move over. Judith cackled to herself. Manu was asleep on the floor. He'd knelt down to pick something up, whispering to himself about testing the soft rug. The next moment he was out. Manu had gone teetotal in solidarity with his wife when she became pregnant. So this had been his first drink in close to a year. Ayla had that Asian gene that prevented her from adequately processing alcohol, and despite Lucas's long-held suspicion that Judith was a closet alcoholic, this incident seemed to be proving she was not. The 4 of them were drunk on 1 12-pack of low-alcohol beer and 1 bottle of bubbles. The staff meeting had gone well, though. They'd all listened attentively, and the heated discussion about whether you can tell your best friend about a customer's unfortunate health condition proved insightful for everyone involved. Lucas picked up an empty brown bottle off the table. Lower lager. He peered in closer. Low-carb beer for the weight-conscious. Underneath that, in small print, was the alcohol percentage. 8%. How could a low-carbohydrate beer be 8%? This was outrageous. He'd been deceived. He dropped the bottle into the bin and it hit the pizza boxes with a thud. But he hadn't read the small print. He'd just grabbed them off the shelf and swiped his card. He should have known better. He stood up. I'm sorry, everyone. I have a confession to make. I'm sure you're all concerned about your current level of intoxication, and well, I've ascertained that the beer is, in fact, not a low-alcohol beer. It's a low-carbohydrate beer. That's awesome, said Ayla, speaking in an odd, high-pitched tone. Lucas turned to her. Don't be deceived. This does not mean the beer is healthier. Manu remained on the floor, his nose half buried in the soap pile. Lucas gave him a nudge with his foot. Manu squinted up at him. Where am I? You're in the staff room of Be Well Pharmacy. You need to get up. Your wife will be wondering where you are. Manu sprang off the floor. What's the time? 8:30. 8:30? She's going to kill me. Lucas opened his wallet and pulled out some cash. Get a taxi home. Manu plucked the cash out of Lucas's hand, glanced around, shouted a goodbye, and lurched out the door.
A dull ache expanded through Jaanvi's chest. Perhaps she was having a heart attack. Those bitches. Stupid bitches. I might be having a heart attack, she said. Well, it's probably heartburn. I know what heartburn is. This isn't heartburn. Mark looked up at her and smiled. He didn't seem at all concerned. You're too young to be having a heart attack. He was wearing a white shirt. He looked good in white. How long had it been? A few months. Maybe 8 or 9, possibly 10. The last time she'd been pregnant and heavy, and Mark had asked her afterwards, his brow gleaming, if he could have harmed the baby. The ache in her chest extended down her front and turned into something else. A sort of longing, a need, or a desire. Are you coming to bed soon? She asked. Like that. No reason in particular? She winked at him. I'll be through in a few minutes, he said, looking back down at his phone. Her signal had been subtle, but he'd understood it. In the bedroom, she pulled all her bras out of the drawer and laid them out on the bed. From the litter, she selected one Mark had bought her a few years ago that she'd never worn. She climbed into bed and waited. Some time must have passed because when Mark finally climbed into bed, he woke her up by pulling the duvet cover off her. He put her hand on her hip, and it didn't feel so bad. Warm and heavy, slightly sweaty. She rolled over and snuggled into him. He moved a hand down her back and rested it on her buttocks. Jaanvi pulled it back up. Why was he rushing things? She was still half asleep, for God's sake. He kissed her on her cheek, down her neck, and across her shoulders. His breath smelled like meat and green beans. Have you brushed your teeth? She asked. Yes. He was lying. Why did he have to lie? It ruins the intimacy. She shifted away from him to get some air, and he moved closer. She pulled her knees up to her chest. What's wrong? Mark asked. I'm tired. You woke me up. Well, now you're awake. Don't feel like it. Fine. Mark rolled over. What a sulk he was. Within a minute, he was snoring. How did he feel it? Just like that, he was asleep. It was infuriating. She poked him with her big toe. He moaned and stopped snoring, only to start again a minute later. She gave him a kick and he grumbled under his breath. There was something cute about him, all sleepy and grumpy. How could she stay angry? She cuddled up to him and kissed him on the back of the neck. He tried to shrug her off, so she stroked his back. Why was it when he was most unavailable, she found him most attractive? She reached her hand underneath his boxer shorts, but he can't have been expecting it because he rolled off the bed. This is ridiculous, he said, heaving himself off the floor and snatching up his pillows. I've got an early start tomorrow. I'm going to sleep on the couch. A few minutes later, and she could hear him snoring from the lounge. She climbed out of bed, tiptoed through smoke, and entered the nursery. Leaving the light off, she sat in the wardrobe and gathered James to her. He felt warm, heavy, whole. Her ache had been in her arms all along.
We'll have more of Fake Baby, written by Amy McDaid, for you at the same time next week. Well, that's Culture 101 for this week. Next week, we have our fast favourites with the celebrated author of O, Becky Manawatu, about the sequel to Terena. With Sir Roger Hall on his latest play, End of Summertime, and we'll be chatting festival opera with Anna Perrard. Thank you for joining us today and all your feedback. We'll be back